Hi, Fabio. I'm glad to see that you wrote us a new set of essays. Let's take a look at what you wrote here today. In many countries, traditional foods are being replaced by fast food. Okay, let's see what you said. Experts throughout both the developing and developed, here you need an ED, world have debated over fast food or own native food. Some believe that quick food could substitute traditional ones. Personally, I strongly disagree. This essay will argue the advantages and disadvantages of such choices, using examples from the UK government and Oxford University to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay, so you had a very clear topic sentence, position statement, I should say. You say, I strongly disagree, and that's fine. And then this sentence too was fine. Let's talk about what I think needs a little work, and it's this section here. Um, Okay, now look how you rephrased the topic. You said they have debated over fast food or own native food. This doesn't really accurately recreate what is in the topic, okay? What is in the prompt is a lot more specific. And so you really need to rephrase this more specifically, okay? So they're not asking you which is better, fast food or traditional food. And that's kind of what it sounded like you were saying here. They asked you something much, much, much more specific. Okay? And then you said some believe that quick food could substitute traditional ones. No, again, that's not what they're saying. They're saying that this is happening. Okay, it's not a is this happening or is this not happening? They are taking this as a given. In other words, they are assuming that this is true. Okay, so I felt like these sentences were arguing the wrong thing. Let me show you how it could have been instead. Experts throughout both the developing and developed world have debated the merits of fast food in relation to various levels of society. Some believe the shift from traditional food to this kind of meal is negative, and personally, I strongly agree. And then this essay will argue, etc., etc. Now, let's talk about that. So that's how I would do this. But this is asking you, to what extent do you agree or disagree? You said you strongly disagree. So logically, it follows that you would only cover the disagree side. When you strongly disagree, it doesn't make sense for you to agree suddenly with one part of this. Okay, that's what strongly disagree means. So, what does this mean? This essay will argue the advantages and disadvantages of such choices. Which choices? The choices towards fast food, the choices towards traditional food. This is very confusing. Okay, so you really need to be much clearer here. Okay, this is when it's really important to take the template and alter it so that it fits the topic you are writing on. Okay, so this essay will argue the disadvantages of fast food using examples, etc., etc., etc. Okay, that would make sense here. Let's continue. On the one hand, there is ample evidence that junk food can be harmful to health. The central reason behind this is twofold. Firstly, they are the least suggested by health advisors and cause obesity. Secondly, it contains, what is it? Junk food. Okay. It contains unbalanced ingredients that is not good for human body. Careful with your grammar here. Secondly, it contains, I don't understand this expression, unbalanced, that are, the ingredients are not good for the human body. For example, recent empirical research by the UK government demonstrated that 90% of all fast food contains oversupplied fat or sugar. We don't use this expression, oversupplied. You could say an abundance of. And not prejudicial, again, wrong word here. So you've got in one sentence a couple of different vocabulary mistakes that is detrimental to the human body. It must not be forgotten that although the kidney is responsible for filtering blood, it cannot sustain excessive, no, it cannot sustain an excessive influx of bad nutrients, resulting in poor filtering performance. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that that an unbalanced diet results in poor nutrition and negative health consequences. Okay, so as you could see, I had to correct quite a bit of vocabulary. I would say that that was probably the weak spot for me in this essay. Another thing that I want to point out to you is here. You've got this, the central idea is twofold, and then you've got firstly, and then you've got secondly. Now, what you basically did is that you completely ignored the firstly. You did not develop it at all. You went straight to secondly, and then you spent the entire paragraph talking about that, which then leads me to ask you, well, then why did you have this firstly here? They are least suggested by health advisors and cause obesity. Generally, I want you to keep as a rule of thumb that if you have a main idea, and that's exactly what this is a main idea, and this is a main idea. When you have a main idea, it is of paramount importance to support it, to develop it, and to have something to say about it. Okay? Whether it's an explanation, whether it's an illustration, whether it's further detail about that main idea, you still need to go into some detail about this. All right. And you did not. Instead, what you did is you just went right into this one and you ignored this entirely. So please don't do that. If you look at the band descriptors, it says covers all parts of the task, but some are more completely covered than others. Some are more fully covered than others. You don't want that to happen. Okay. Okay, I think I talked about the vocabulary. So it was essentially for me vocabulary and task achievement that needed a little work in this paragraph. Let's continue. On the other hand, although there is a case for local and well-balanced foods enriched with vitamins or protein that impact people's lives for better and cannot be overstated. All right, grammatically and lexically, this needs to be revised. There's really a very large misunderstanding about how to use this, although there was a case for it, etc., etc. Basically, when you use this, what you want to do is you want to create a segue between the previous paragraph and the one you're about to write. So that means that this statement needs to essentially restate the main idea of this paragraph. Okay? So, on the other hand, although there is a case for the negative aspects of XYZ, okay, the impact, the positive impact on people's lives cannot be overstated. That would make sense. That would be a transition that makes sense. Okay, but we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but I want to read what you actually wrote. For example, when preparing foods S with vegetables, carbohydrates, and protein, something's happening with your grammar here. I see. Okay. When preparing foods with vegetables, comma, carbohydrates and proteins can be very tasty, not tasteful, and respect the traditional values of your local culture. Consistent with this line of thinking is that most of the time, ready or pre-made food is not beneficial to health. Thus, it's possible to state beyond doubt that taking care of the diet is mandatory for long-term quality of living. Okay. So this paragraph for me had a number of problems. Basically, it didn't really say anything. I didn't understand what the central idea was. I didn't understand what you were supporting. It needed to definitely be reworked. Okay, based on what you had written here, I thought that you were going to talk about. Here you talked about why fast food is bad for our health. Here I was expecting, based on what you wrote up here, that this was going to talk about why fast food is actually not that bad, that it actually helps us in certain ways in certain layers of society and families and individuals, something, okay? I was expecting something like that. So this paragraph for me felt really off topic, felt like it didn't have any central idea, okay? Let's take a look at your conclusion, and then I want to talk about how you could have developed this. Let's see what you wrote in your conclusion. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that cooking at home or knowing the precedence of food, that's the wrong word, is the best choice for balanced diets. It is predicted that rushing during meals will increasingly bring damage, no S, to health. The human body is a temple that must be cared for and preserved. That's a lovely last sentence. I like that. Okay, now let's talk about what for me is a big problem in this essay. Grammar was okay. Coherence and cohesion was, it was all right. Okay, needed a little work. But what I really want to talk to you about is task achievement. So what's happening in this essay is that there are some givens. They're telling you we're not eating traditional food as much anymore. Instead, we're eating a lot of fast food. This is really negative. But not just this is really negative, it's really negative for families, for individuals, and societies. Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that whole thing? Do you agree that this is negative for individuals and families and society? This is a given, okay? And then this is what you're essentially asked to write about, okay? So let's talk about how you could deal with this. The first thing that you need to remember is that you see this and here, they're essentially telling you that you have to cover all three areas. You have to cover families, individuals, and societies. You said that you strongly disagree that fast food can substitute traditional food. So let's work on that. What you could have done is you could have had a paragraph saying how negative fast food is for families. You could have spent an entire paragraph talking about that. Then you could have spent an entire paragraph talking about individuals and society and how negative fast food is for them. Okay, now the way you mix up your paragraphs is really not a big deal, but that's one way to do it. When you have one element that you can talk a lot about, like individuals, like families, spend a paragraph on it. And then in the other paragraph, add the other two that you didn't talk about, families and individuals, individuals and society. It doesn't really matter. But you're going to talk about the negative effect on both because you said that you strongly disagree. Okay, so this is one way to do it. Is it the only way? No. Is it the right way? Well, I mean, there are multiple right ways, but it is one right way. You said you strongly disagree. That means that you have to carry that idea throughout the essay. So this whole on the one hand, on the other hand didn't make sense. Okay? If you wanted to talk about both sides of the essay, you could have done that. But you could have said, personally, I believe that while fast food is positive for society, it has negative effects on the individual and the family. Something like that. You understand my point. So you can separate it. You can say, yes, it's good for these people. No, it's bad for those people. And then you can structure your paragraph like that. Okay? I don't know if that's a lot of information. I mean, I've been doing this particular essay for about 14 minutes, so it's a lot to work with. I hope it's helpful. Let's take a look at your task one. All right, let's take a look at your letter to your friend. Dear Benjamin, I don't know what all of this is. When you write a letter, just don't bother with dates, don't bother with anything, just go straight to the name. Dear Benjamin, I hope this letter finds you well. I am writing to you because I couldn't visit you in London last week, and I would like to apologize for such an inconvenience. CE. I had planned to visit you, but unfortunately I had some unexpected situations that shortened my stay there. Not over there, just there. Okay. My boss called me and asked to return earlier from vacation because the demand is currently very high at the office. What a pity. By the way, I was very glad that I could do a quick sightseeing. Well, that I could do some quick sightseeing and visit some popular London spots like Buckingham Palace, I can't say that, Westminster Abbey, and London Eye. I must mention that I enjoyed a night in a typical British pub with local beer. The local public transportation is very good and punctual. I could go everywhere with my day pass ticket without rushing. I will definitely return to visit you in London soon. Could you please indicate when a good time to visit you and spend a nice time together is? It's an indirect question, so the verb has to go at the end. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Kind regards. Okay. Um, this was nice in general, but I don't feel like your task achievement was totally on point. Remember, you're supposed to apologize for not being able to meet. What is your apologize? What is your apology? Sorry. What is your apology? It was just this. I would like to apologize for such inconvenience. That's the only thing you said. Remember that if it's a bullet, you need to go into some detail. Okay? It's not enough to just say, I apologize, and then be done with it, because it's an entire bullet dedicated to this. So you should have gone into a little more detail. I'm writing to you because, how about I'm writing to you to apologize for not being able to visit you in London last week. Full stop. I realize it must have been such an inconvenience since we were planning our date together for so many weeks. I promise I will make it up to you and you will understand what happened when I explain. That is actually fulfilling the bullet, okay? Then you're supposed to give your reasons. That's a whole other bullet. This is it. This is the only thing you did. My boss called me and asked to return early from vacation because the demand is currently very high at the office. That really is not enough. I mean, you could have said more here. You could have said, you can't imagine my anger, but he said he would give me an extra week vacation if I returned earlier. So I agreed to do it. Okay. Again, you have an entire bullet dedicated to this. So exploit it. Go into some detail. Then suggest how you can meet some other time. Here, it's really important to understand the language that they're using. Suggest is a word that's really saying quite a lot. How do you suggest in English? What is the language of suggestion? Okay, so you said I will definitely return to visit you in London soon. Could you please indicate, etc., etc.? That's just a question. You're not suggesting. Okay, so you need to be familiar with what the language of suggestion is. Suggesting is perhaps I can come next month. Maybe I could visit you 2 months from now when my work will send me to London again. We could do this. Perhaps we could do that. That's the language of suggestion. Okay, so it's really important that you familiarize with these different functions. That's what they're called. It's called functional language. And it's important that you're familiar with them and how to use them. Okay, so nice work on the whole. I'm glad to see you're trying and you're working and you're studying. But those are my suggestions on how to improve this. Okay, so thanks a lot. I'll be waiting for your next set of essays. Good luck.